Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today will be no different. Today, instead of you got questions for me, today I got questions for you. All right. And here's the question of the day. What's more important? Building muscle, okay? Building muscle, or is it more important to burn fat? All right. Now, this is the question. Because if you take a moment and think about it, what are people really focused on? And you got to think from the perspective of health, okay? So today we're not talking about you getting bikini ready, you getting beach ready. We're not talking about you getting fit enough to go back to that high school reunion. We're not talking about you and your aesthetics, okay? We're talking about health, okay? Now, with that in mind, I'm going to ask the question again. What is more important? Building muscle, okay, or burning fat? All right. So that's what we're going to go through today, because I think this may change your approach to your own health, okay? And by changing this approach, it may help you overcome that hurdle that you've been trying to jump over for the last 5-10 years, okay? Now, everybody's heard of the freshman 15, all right? That's the 15 pounds that typically kids gain in their freshman year of college, okay? It seems like it's almost inevitable that first year of college, the metabolism switches, okay? And you get that 15, and that 15 turns into 30, and that 30 turns into 50, and then that's your weight the rest of your life, okay? Now, here's the thing about weight. Weight isn't just one thing, okay? We tend to focus on the fat. I gained the 50 pounds, okay? But we don't necessarily focus on the composition of the muscle. We'll go in and get a fat composition, but we won't look at our muscle composition. So this is why I'm posing this question to you, and we're gonna look at it not only from that perspective, but we're gonna look at it from the perspective of how this changes our biochemistry, thereby changing our metabolism as well too. Because a lot of the reason why you can't control your metabolism, which means that you end up with metabolic diseases. Metabolic diseases include things like insulin resistance, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, okay? All of these metabolic issues, okay? So we're gonna dive deep into that today as we explore this conversation of what's more important, muscle, okay, or burning fat. Is it building muscle or burning fat, okay? And I'm gonna show you how they work together, okay? Because there's never a one-sided equation, okay, when it comes to health. Everything has its dualities and everything is synchronistic. And so, of course, to be truthful with you, there is no one answer to this question, but what I will tell you is what you're going to learn by the end of this video is how important it is we start to focus on building muscle, okay? And that will actually help you burn fat, and I'll explain in just a second. But let's jump into the first reason why it's so important to focus on building healthy, strong muscle, okay? The number one reason why a focus on muscle is so important, because muscles are the organs of longevity. If you truly want to predict somebody's longevity in terms of the quality of life and the quality of years of life, then one of the greatest predictors is the amount of muscle, okay, that they have, okay? Because when you have muscle, and again, healthy muscle, not muscle you use hormone therapy to build, not muscle that you use, illegal anabolic steroids, true muscle that you earned, okay, through a lifestyle. That type of muscle increases longevity, okay? So muscle tissue is the organ of longevity because muscle is an organ, okay? So that's the number one reason why it needs to be more of a focus, okay? Number two, the number two reason why muscle is so important is because you will not burn fat until you burn out all the sugar that's in your muscle, okay, and in your blood, all right? Why is that so important? Because our fuel system in our bodies is very specific. Okay, the first thing it's gonna burn is glucose, which is sugar. Okay, the second fuel will be in the form of fat. Okay, all right, we have another fuel source that could be ketones. Okay, but essentially what happens is fat is sent to the liver, and that fat is turned into ketones. Okay, and absolutely last fuel source that the body would use and never wants to use is protein, which is muscle. Okay, so the first is sugar. And the reason why I'm bringing it up and the reason why it's so important is because most people's blood sugar is very high. Most people are loaded down with sugar. I say this all the time. I'm going to continue to repeat this statistic. The average American consumes about 150 pounds of added sugar every year. Okay, 150 pounds of sugar every year. And guess what? You know how much added sugar we need in our diet? This much. Zero. We need zero added sugar. And we're consuming 152 pounds here in America. All right? That sugar is converted, all that excess sugar is converted into fat. Okay? Now, all that sugar, then the body has to figure out, how do I get this sugar inside of the muscle cell? And that's the important cue that people don't understand. All the sugar has to go inside of the muscle cell to be used for energy. Okay? But if you got so much in there already, the cell would essentially shut down. It's like, think of it like an event. There's an event, and the event has space for 35,000 people. Okay? So once 35,000 people get inside of the event, the door is shut and closed because the fire marshal has said that there's too many people inside of here. In this case, too much sugar. Okay, so the doors will shut and close. And this is what's happening with most people. So this is why muscle is so important, because the more muscle you have and the more efficient your muscle is, it means that you can burn off that sugar very quickly, even if it is the healthy sugars. Okay, so, and we'll talk about this in a second, but the more muscle, the more likely you are to burn off the sugar. And so it's really important to understand you won't even get to burning fat until you burn off the sugar, which means that people are eating too much, okay, throughout the day. All right, and that's another conversation, but we'll talk about that in a second. All right, the next one. The next reason why muscle is so important is because as you increase muscle, you will improve your metabolic health, okay? As you increase muscle, you will improve your health. That means that you become more and more efficient at not only burning sugar, but processing all things, okay? Blood flow, everything improves. And this is really important because the more efficient you become at that, the less likely you are to develop insulin resistance, which means that you get to that point where the cell says no more. Okay, you're less likely to get to that point. So that's a huge benefit as well too. Number 4, because it's easier to build muscle than it is to burn fat. Okay, I could take you in the gym and we get some resistance training, we get some calisthenics going on, and we can start building you muscle today. We can start this process today. All right, and you could start seeing the results. I've seen people see results in 2 to 3 weeks, where they literally can feel muscles activating that didn't feel activated before. They can literally start to see some of the definition as well too. But I'll tell you, like, man, trying to burn fat is like trying to get a cranberry stain off of a white shirt. No matter what you do, there it goes. It's right there. Still jiggly and wiggly and just smiling at you like, I ain't going nowhere. But if you wanted to build muscle, that's a much more easier process, okay? And as I said before, the more muscle you build, the more efficient you become at processing sugar. And the more efficient you become at processing sugar, It means that your insulin levels are going to go down, and insulin is a fat storage hormone, which means that you'll stop storing as much fat. Okay, usually important. All right. The next reason, number 5, why muscle is so important in this equation to whether or not you want to focus on building muscle or burning fat. Muscle is more metabolically active than fat. That means that it burns more calories than fat does. Not only that, the thing is not only is it burning the calories, the thing about fat is that fat is actually producing things in your body that make you even more fat, okay? Adds more fat to your body, okay? Not only that, the fat is also making you more diseased as well too. Give you a case, for instance. One of the things that fat does, fat will consume your vitamin D. So you may actually have normal levels of vitamin D, but if you have a certain level of excess fat on your body, it will start to soak up all that vitamin D. Because guess what? Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, okay? So it's really important for that reason. Also, fat will start to create an enzyme, okay? That enzyme, called aromatase, will start to convert your testosterone into estrogen and start to make more estrogen, meaning you become more estrogen dominant in your body. And guess what? The more estrogen you have in your body, you will start to develop that fat around that belt line, okay? Where you put your belt, that fat, if you got excess estrogen in your body, that excess estrogen is producing that type of fat and more water retention in the body as well too. So hugely important. Muscle is more metabolically active, okay? Number 6, it's the fat that makes you bigger, it's not the muscle. People, a lot of times, I hear people say this all the time. They'll say, well, I want to go to the gym, it's going to make me bigger. And, now these muscles are making me, look and appear bigger, and I'm going to be heavier, which may be true because muscle is far heavier than actual fat. And let me give you an example. You can see it, a live example right here. This is 5 pounds of fat, and this is 5 pounds of muscle. Okay? 5 pounds of fat, 5 pounds of muscle. You see how much smaller this is compared to this? Okay? This takes up a hell of a lot more room. Okay? This is why I tell people all the time, don't be concerned about gaining muscle because you're gaining more health when you gain more muscle. Okay? You gain more ability to burn the fat as well too. So build the muscle, okay? Become more metabolically active, okay? Increase your metabolism, okay? Increase your ability to burn off sugar or escort sugar into the cell. Reduce the amount of insulin that's in your body or being produced because insulin is a fat storage hormone. It tells the body to store fat. So as long as your insulin is up, your fat is going nowhere. So this is what I mean when I say it's the fat that's making you look bigger, okay? This stuff, this is 5 pounds of fat. This is 5 pounds of muscle, okay? All right? You don't want to lose this. You want to lose this. But to lose this, you got to gain this, okay? So I hope that makes sense. The last one is, and this is really for perspective for you, is that, so they have something that measures sort of your body composition called BMI. Now, I don't necessarily like BMI because it doesn't account for certain things that are really, really important. But quite often they use BMI to determine if your body mass index is over a certain level, then it can help you determine whether or not you have a unhealthy constitution. Well, to be honest with you, it doesn't look directly at how much fat you have versus how much muscle you have. But that's the point of it all. If you have a ton of muscle, okay, all right, and you have a low fat composition in the body, but your BMI is coming up as high, you're still healthy, Okay, and let me repeat that again so then you understand. There are certain people who will have a high BMI, especially athletes, okay? Like I'll give you, for instance, like on myself. All right, I'm around 220 pounds. Now that's pretty heavy for me right now, but here's the good thing. I'm 6'2", 220 pounds. Here's another good thing. My body fat is only 12%, okay? So that means roughly around 75 to 80% of my body is muscle, and then there's water and other things like that. But I'm very much so loaded with muscle. Okay. So when you look at my BMI, it may look high. Okay, slightly high. But it's only slightly high. And this is why I say BMI isn't a great tool to measure healthiness. But the point I'm trying to make to you is I am a really good example of somebody who actually has a very high muscle content and only 12% body fat, which isn't like great, but it's pretty good. So in my case, I'm actually healthy. Okay? Metabolically healthy because I have a lot of muscle. Here's another case. I've met people who on the outside, they look thin. Okay? When you see them, they look thin. But then when you do a test like a DEXA scan and you look at their composition and you look at their body fat, this person who looks thin, who looks lean, this person who looks thin and looks lean has a body fat composition 25%, 30%. And they look lean, they look skinny, what people will refer to them as. So that person is unhealthy. So they're thin on the outside, fat on the inside. I call it TOFI, okay? Thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So this is why I'm saying you really can't, like, every day when you get on that scale, that's not really a good metric for where you are. I've had people who did my detox, and during the detox, they were very concerned because they were like, hey, Dr. Price, I did this detox with a group of my friends and family. Everybody lost weight except me. I'm just really disappointed in that. And then the question I asked them is like, well, do your clothes fit differently? They're like, yeah. I said, what about your belt when you put it on? They're like, yeah, I'm on like the last loop now. I said, okay, so that means that your waistline's gotten significantly smaller. Yeah. Okay, and what about in the thighs and the shirts? They're like, yeah, everything is a lot more looser now. I said, so you lost weight, you just gain muscle in the process. You gain healthy things in the process, okay? So you might have lost some fat around the belly area, which is the most dangerous fat, visceral fat, okay? That's the most important thing you wanna lose. So sometimes the scale isn't a great predictor, okay? What is a great predictor is the constitution of how much of this do you have versus how much of this do you have? How much muscle do you have versus how much fat? And this is why I say when you focus on the muscle and focus on your diet together, this solves the issue, okay? But if you're feeding yourself sugar, which is elevating your insulin, and insulin is a fat storage hormone, and that all that fat is accumulating, and this is causing estrogen to build up in the body, which causes all that fat around that belt line to develop, then you're in a vicious cycle that 2/3 of Americans are in, because 75% of Americans are either overweight or obese, okay? So I hope this has been helpful. So this will help you on your journey. Make sure, I need you to smash that subscribe button, hit the like button, share this with somebody else, because these are the things that they don't tell you when you go to get a checkup. So share this information with people to get them empowered as you have been today. I appreciate your support. And until the next time, peace and blessings. For those who are still on the outside of my 30-day group detox program that starts in September, the deadline to join is August 19. All you need to do is go to drbobbyprice.com, my website, get the 30-day group detox. You're gonna get a meal plan, recipes, Access to an online support group with hundreds of other people in there. I'll be in there also teaching you as well too, doing some group coaching. You get a 30-day supply of my herbal detox as well too. And this is the perfect program to do with guidance, with support, with meals, a meal list, food list that you can go. This is like the perfect program for people who, if you tried to do it by yourself and it just didn't work, it's a really good program to kind of embrace. Again, we start in September. The deadline to join is August 19th. drbobbyprice.com, and I'll see you on the inside. Until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.